Hi, welcome to the Inhabitants Podcast, Thriving Occupancy. This is Season 1, Episode 1, and today our topic is the power of just starting. And the reason I wanted to speak about this topic today is because of many reasons. And the main reason I will get to at the end of this episode, so I hope you stay tuned for that. But let's begin speaking about why we should just start. And this applies to anything, whatever you may be passionate about, that thing you've been thinking about for the past few years, days, months, whatever the case is. Usually, as humans, we are fearful, and unfortunately, we seem to be very pessimistic as well. And if we decide that we want to do something, we want to pursue something, we usually harbor on it and procrastinate and wait. And today I would just like to offer you some insight and just have a discussion around the actual power of just starting something. So first I'll begin around the reasons why we do not begin certain things, why we procrastinate, why we hold out on ourselves. And a big reason for that is lack of confidence. We're usually comparing ourselves with confident or successful persons and use that as even more reason or ammunition as to why we can't start something. We think that they have already made it and we are in this position where we don't seem as confident or as successful, and we tell ourselves, well, I cannot achieve what they have achieved. And that's also a big hindrance for us just beginning to do something. And there's a real magic in being assertive and bold enough in just beginning something. And you would only realize that magic when you're well into it. Not before, but when you're well into it. So you could only recognize that once you have begun. And I'm sure you can think back into some period or some point in your life where you were filled with fear about achieving a certain goal. Whether you think that the goal was too large for you to achieve, whether there were certain factors in your life at the point in time that hindered you from getting to that goal, or you thought, well, this is too big of an obstacle for me to overachieve, for me to achieve this goal. We would usually put those things on the forefront of our mind and tell ourselves, this is the reason why I cannot achieve this. So for one moment, you can just think about a major goal that you had and what were the hindrances that you would have put in the forefront of your mind as to why you could not achieve that goal. A lot of us suffer from imposter syndrome. We think a lot of self-doubt, doubting thoughts about ourselves. And I think that really digging in is where the courageousness would come out. We really have to think critically and actually put energies and thought towards this thing. Because if we just approach things the traditional way, the normal way, we would be very pessimistic in what we want to approach, whatever we want to achieve, whatever we want to do. So I think it's something that we have to actively do, and this is what I hope to share with you today. And this may sound extremely corny or even cliche, but you have to believe in yourself. If you keep comparing yourself to others, if you keep having all these pessimistic thoughts and all these reasons why you cannot do something, you will not do it. You need to actively make a choice to flip the coin and believe in yourself. Have positive thoughts. Say affirmations. Pray. Ask for guidance. I think these are the actionable steps that we need to employ to actually move forward. So you have to believe that this is something you want to do, something, whether you're good at it or not, that is not the issue. Once you believe in yourself, I think that's the main ingredient to being successful in anything that you want to achieve in this life. So that's the whole lack of confidence aspect. There's another reason where we seem or we think that we have to wait on the right time. And the fact is, there will never, ever, ever be a right time, because situations will never be perfect. You will never have the actual amount of money you need to do something, the actual amount of resources, staff, time. There will never be a correct, perfect, right time for you to start. So you need to get that idea out of your head. We usually think, okay, well, maybe in 2 or 3 months time, I can be able to achieve this and get this and allocate this, and maybe then I could start. And that 2 or 3 months can turn into 2 or 3 years. So from now, understand that there is never a right or perfect time. We all have stuff happening on a day-to-day basis in our lives that we think that we have to give priority to, because that is what is happening, whether it's work or things happening in our personal life, and we think that this is happening now and I need to deal with this and not put too much energy in something that is not even happening yet. And we tend to just push our dreams to the side, push what we want, push our desires away. And discipline is an incredibly important factor. When you have established a routine and you have introduced discipline into your life, you can properly place things where they need to be. So you have your work life, your personal life. You need to be disciplined enough to effectively manage that, and then carve out time to focus on what you want to start. So I think discipline is also a really great point. So I'm going to give you an actionable point here. And for example, if you ever feel like you need to put off a task, just simply commit 10 or 20 minutes to it. I usually feel it's very daunting for me when I have to edit an hour-long video, hour-long podcast, or whatever the case may be. And I know it's going to take up a lot of my time and energy. And I usually procrastinate and push it off to the side. But I think this method really works, where I just tell myself, okay, I'm gonna give this 10 or 20 minutes. And if I feel like I'm enjoying it, I'm having fun, I'm making progress, I will push further. If it's still something that I think I'm fighting with, I'm going to give it the 20 minutes and get back to it. So whatever it is you think that you want to start, you want to begin, and it may be daunting because of the amount of resources and energy and time that you will have to put forth, I encourage you to do this actionable point of giving it 10 or 15 minutes and just see from there. So to summarize that, there will never be a right time. You need to take small steps to achieve whatever it is you want to begin. Another hindrance is us thinking that we don't have enough knowledge to get into something. We can get caught up doing research and overthinking. I mean, even for this podcast itself, this being the first episode, I was constantly on YouTube, constantly on Google doing research, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, thinking about launching this and wanting to get everything right. And then I realized that I do not need to be a master at anything. You know, for example, right now here in the studio, for the podcast listeners, side note, if you would like to actually view the video version of this podcast, you could visit YouTube, Inhabitants Podcast. But I just want to bring an example, because in this studio that I made here, I had certain things set up and it was not perfect. And I have a light right on the side of me. And since the beginning of this recording, the light was not on. And I literally just turned on the light and decided to push forth, because that could have been a reason why I could have stopped this whole video and did it over, because I needed my setup to be perfect. And that right there is a great example of things do not need to be perfect for you to start. So we need to get rid of that idea of everything needs to be lined up correctly. And I will get into a bunch of reasons why things don't need to be lined up correctly, linked to this particular episode. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, you do not become a master before you begin something. You become a master by doing something. And that's just the facts of the situation. And you realize that when you have begun and not before. When you're in it, you realize, okay, this is how I learn. You don't learn through theory and tutorials and all of this stuff. You learn the best by practicality. Another reason why we don't just begin something is because we fear embarrassment and failure, and this also links to perfection. We care about what other people think, and that's only natural as human beings to care what other people think, but it reaches a point where you have to actually position certain things in your mind and realize that this is something I really want to do, and other people's opinion should not sway me either left or right. I'm staying steadfast in what it is I want to accomplish. And we worry about pleasing our parents and how it would make us look, pleasing our friends, stuff like that. So whatever the case is, if you want to achieve, let's say, go down a different career path that your parents may not necessarily approve of, you probably won't even begin to entertain that thought because you care about their image of you. Everything we do to some extent is trial and error. We're never really off the bat super great at something. You may have a talent, but talent also needs to be developed. I really think that is something that we need to understand. So from those points, you would also learn that there's no such thing as failure, only learning experiences. And that is so true. It may sound cliche, but when you actually get into a situation and you think it's a failure and you take that pessimistic route, that's it. You just think it's a failure, you get depressed, you go into a zone. But if you look at it from an optimistic point of view and you tell yourself, okay, this didn't quite work out, but I learned that I can do X, Y, Z different next time. And then you attempt the next time immediately or the day after or however it may be according to what you want to achieve. Like, I'm bumping into the mics right now. I'm hot. So, there's a lot of reasons why I would think that I'm failing right now or that things are not perfect. But I understand even beforehand, based on other experiences and other goals that I've tried to achieve, that it's all learning experiences. So even though in my animations of my hands or etc., I may be bumping into the mic and that might affect the recording, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to think that I'm failing, but it will be a learning experience. So maybe for the next episode, I can position things a bit different, shift the mic a different way, that kind of stuff. So I really wanted to use this episode as a prime example of exactly the topic I'm talking about, of just getting started. And on that note, I would actually get into reasons why I should not have even started this podcast. And reason number one, after doing all my research, I said, okay, I needed this amount of mics, I needed this amount of lights, all these gadgets and gizmos, because I'm trying to replicate podcasts and sets that I'm seeing all over. And I had my Amazon list and I was ready to order. And the first order got cancelled. And I was back and forth with the bank on the phone. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to order certain things from Amazon and I'm not getting through. And I tried a second time, it got cancelled. I tried a third time with a different card, cancelled. I tried a whole different card from a friend. And for 5 consecutive times, the order got cancelled. And money even was deducted from the account. So it was very discouraging. And I was really wondering, okay, is that a sign? Is this something that I need to do? And okay, I said, let me look locally. I looked on local marketplaces. to see if I saw mics of this quality, and I didn't see any, and I was getting really discouraged, and I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the right time. And on a marketplace, when I got cancelled the 5th time, I saw this mic that I'm currently recording on available, and I messaged the person, and the next 2 days I purchased the mic. Now essentially I have other friends that will be joining in this podcast. I have guests that will be joining in this podcast, and I could have said, okay, I have one, but I need 2 or 3 more to start. And that could have been another point that I said, okay, I need to wait. It's not perfect. It's not great. I need to get the mics because I need to have my co-podcasters here, and I need to have another mic for the guests. I need to have a proper location. So now that I got the mic, I had to figure out, okay, there's one mic and there'll possibly be 3 or 4 of us. How would that work? So that's a new issue, and I just keep finding issues and discovering problems. And the reason you're only hearing my voice is that the other guests couldn't be here. My other co-podcasters could not be here. And that could have been another point of me saying, okay, I don't need to start this right now. I will just wait. And that would have, because they have their other schedules, and this could have pushed on for months and months and months. So I decided, okay, let me try and do this myself. Another issue is that I didn't have the best location or the best set. I had some help, and I repurposed this room, and I'm quite pleased with this set I have here for me to record this podcast. There's music playing outside. There's the birds. It's not ideal. It's not perfect. So I could have said, okay, you know what? I don't want the audio to sound terrible, so I won't start. Another reason is that my phone camera is not that great, and I was incredibly upset because I bought this phone for the camera itself, and I did buy it used, which I think was my first mistake, and I think the camera had some defects. So I really would ideally love to buy a Sony mirrorless camera. I had one in the past. I sold it. That is a regret. But I was like, okay, to start this, I needed all those mics and lights and mirrorless camera and all this other stuff. So I really didn't too much like the phone. And even stuff that could hold you back as well is today I was shaving my head, and to prepare for the podcast, the video version as well, and I cut my head really badly, and a lot of blood was coming from the cut, and I had to put a plaster, and I had to put on a hat to record the video version of this. Again, if you would like to see the video version, you can visit YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, and you could see the video version of that podcast and this episode in particular. So all these reasons, the mic cancelling, losing money in the process, only getting one mic, not having an ideal location, not having the best camera, my co-podcasters not being able to make it due to scheduling reasons, the shaving incident, all those could have been reasons why I could have put off this podcast and delay it months and months and months away. So I want you yourselves to take a moment and think about, are there reasons that keep coming up or that have accumulated as to why you're not starting that thing that you need to start? And even though there may be those issues or those obstacles, you may be even thinking to yourself, do I even want to start this? Is this something I should even pursue? Am I even passionate about it? And I would like to end this podcast and leave you with these thoughts from Denzel Washington. And I'm going to quote him word for word here. And it says, true desire in the heart for anything good is God's proof to you, sent beforehand to indicate that it's yours already. I'll say it again. True desire in the heart, that itch that you have, whatever it is that you want to do, that thing that you want to do to help others and to grow and to make money, that desire and that itch, that's God's proof to you, sent beforehand already to indicate that it is yours. So I leave you with that thought. I leave you with that information, and just assess for a bit if you really have that itch, if you really have that burning desire. And that should be indication enough to you that this is something that you should do. Whatever it is, that thing you're thinking about right now, even as I speak, is something that you should wholeheartedly pursue. Thank you for joining me on this episode 1, season 1 of the Inhabitants podcast. I'm Handel Savary. Godspeed.